And we are live. This is so exciting. Hello, Sean. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I kind of like the challenge. To say yes to life constantly. I think until just like 2 minutes ago, we didn't know if we were gonna do this or not. And it's so amazing because we are trying to get together many times, and you were in the middle of a moving, you were with a lot of projects going on.
Yes.
And for me, I like to say, okay, I'm gonna have this artist with me and da da da, and announce you, like to have an audience for you.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden this morning when you text me and said, hey, I have an hour and I think we can do this, I was like, yes, why not? For me, the importance to say yes to life, whatever it comes alone, is
Hmm.
is important because it's creativity in movement, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's been a crazy week. You mentioned the moves. I moved last. Let me see. Started moving last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
That was, moving in with my lady and her kids. So with that, coordinating all that, and then I had a organization reach out to me last Thursday, and to ask if I could, do something with the youth and the young folks that they're serving and their staff
Mm-hmm.
on this past Thursday. No, the second, the Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
And so that was really last minute. And then this thing that I did today with the American Psychological Association, they approached me the same day, maybe it was the day after, and said, "Can you do this like next week and this weekend?" I'm like, "Oh wow, okay." So it made this whole week convoluted and a little crazy. And so I really wasn't certain what was going to happen today. But as soon as we got done, they were like clockwork. Another workshop coming, y'all got to go. so, so I didn't have to talk to anybody. So that time freed up, which is a good thing.
And what were you doing today with the Psychological Association?
We talked about art activism and using art, as a tool to heal, and it's like therapy, that type of vibe. And there's another gentleman that was speaking. He does a lot of anti-racist work as an organization. So it was myself, him, and a person facilitating. So it was pretty good. It was well attended. It was pretty awesome. It had
Mm-hmm.
this. It was different because I had this. The second time it's happened to me in life when I speak to people about certain things, and it was the white gentleman. He came up to me. He's crying, and he's like, thank you. I didn't really. You made me think about some things, and let me know some things I need to work on within my life and within understanding my privilege and his space and so on and so forth. He's from Colorado, and it was really cool. He goes, "Can I give you a hug?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll give you a hug." So I gave him my card. So we'll be talking later on down the road. But that was heavy. It was unexpected for me because I was like, okay, well, it's time to go. And he walks up and he's you know face
So,
full of tears. It was heavy. Anyway,
yeah. What? Tell me a bit more about why it was heavy for you.
it was heavy because sometimes I don't. People speak things into my life and say things about me that I'm humble. I think I'm humble, and so I don't. What's the word? I don't. I don't carry this chip on my shoulder that I have impact on people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is the reason why all my the letters in my name are lowercase. It's no capitalized letters. It's more or less, and it's not even connected to bell hooks because I understood bell hooks did the same thing. It was more or less me saying I'm an artist, but I'm human like everybody else. I'm no more important. I'm no less important than anyone else. So it's all lowercase. So when things like that happen, it surprises me because I don't consciously realize that what I'm saying impacts people. I mean, it's weird because the intent is to impact people, but when it's in right here, it's like, oh, it actually is happening.
Hmm.
You know, so
And also,
that's what surprised me. It's the crazy dichotomy. It's like I want to impact people but it's again when I'm confronted with it, it's like, wow, this is this is actually impacting people.
it is. It is. That's the reason I wanted to talk to you, actually. And yet, when you find the impact right there, the impact you have, I imagine you feel like an enormous responsibility, right, in that moment, because all of a sudden you have proof that the impact that your work or your words are or your art is having in people.
Definitely, you know, and I mentioned this earlier, and I can tell you now, it took me. I've been writing for 36 years, 36 years I've been writing. It took me a long time to tell people I was a writer,
Hmm.
right? Because that's a responsibility. And then when I became, you know, got more into this visual artwork and painting, which is about 11, 12 years ago now, it took me longer to say I was a painter, artist, because
Uh-huh.
there's a responsibility and obligation for me that comes with that. You know, one, I didn't want to say I was a painter or a writer, and then you know, not have really put in the practice and the work to earn that title like a lot of my colleagues have earned, you know, throughout the years. But also, I had to make sure I was ready to carry
Hmm.
that torch, so to say, to lead through my art. Because I don't believe that we should create, I don't believe anybody that's creative or has a platform should create just for the sake of beauty. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Hmm.
But when we have this platform, I think we have to use, and at least I do, have to use it to edify humanity in some way, shape, or form, and you know, and kick the can further down the road to use what I have to better people. And if I'm not doing that, then why am I doing art? And that's the way I see it. So it took me a while to say I was an artist because I knew the responsibility that came with that. You have when you decide to lead, however you decide to lead, you must lead. And quite often it chooses us. We don't choose it,
Exactly. Uh-huh.
right? So
Interesting you say that because I gotta say to everybody or to whoever is listening right now that we haven't talked. This is the first time we are talking right now, and for me that is a art in itself, right? Like the
definitely.
art of connecting and the space we are creating for connecting to something bigger than us. Yet I was introduced to your art and your work by Dixie Gilbert. She said you need to meet these artists and you need to listen to this. So I listened to this interview you had with Diane. Is her name?
Hmm.
Yes, right.
Hmm. Yes.
And I really took some notes. You know, I like to take notes when I am listening to something that is impacting me.
Hmm.
And you said that you were like for a period of time. I think I want to say I want to remember that it was 3 years that you need to make peace to with being calling yourself an artist. What do you do those 3 years that were part of your process on accepting and aligning yourself with your true voice?
So speaking of voice, all artists, you know, at least as I'm told, I'm self-taught, right? So I don't have this academic, I'll just say academic rigidity
Uh-huh.
when it comes to my art, right? I don't have this is how things are supposed to be and put in this nice box and I'll go create. It's like, okay, I learned on my own, which I've learned is the best for me, and truly speak out of emotion and respond that way. And so for those 3 years, I was trying to figure out what my voice meant and how that felt for me
Uh-huh.
without having these other things I've been taught on how to find it, if that makes sense, right? And so that meant, you know, studying more, painting more, feeling more, being more, you know, empathetic with the paint and the craft, you know, and trying to figure out, okay, how can I navigate? How can I best use this to ready myself? Hate using the term weaponize, but how can I get to a point where I can weaponize my art that it can impact people and fulfill this title of being an artist, right? Because we are artists are like those folks, at least in my opinion, who are supposed to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Not just tell a story, but tell the truth,
Exactly.
no matter the cost, right? A lot of vocations, let's say teachers, for example. I worked with the school district here for 12 years, and in speaking with them, there was only so much they could say because they were worried about so many different things within their vocation. There's tenure. If I say this, I lose my job, so on and so forth. But with artists, we're just by nature, I feel we're supposed to be the ones say, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how I'm going to show you. And this is how I'm going to stimulate and stir conversation. And if we're not doing that, then why do we even do art? I mean, beauty is great. I have stuff hanging in a couple banks and a clinic, and it's all wonderful. And I love doing that work. But there's another part of me knowing that there's this world and this life is so much bigger than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to figure out, how do I earn my space in this time that I'm on this planet? And I think it has to be through helping people see things or understand or things that they don't see about themselves, or talk about things people don't want to talk about, to get to a better space. Because that's what end of the day, that's all we want, right? How can we live, it sounds cliche, harmoniously and in peace without so on and so forth. But it's hard to do. We have so many different things going on, and not too many people truly talking about the issues that are going on that we can see by just waking up and looking out the window. So
that requires so in the work that I do, one of, I will say, that I feel the best is when I'm able to go down. I call it the underworld, right? Because it is the underworld because there are shadows and there are monsters, and I feel comfortable walking through that, right? Because we tend to put that, we call it beauty. And for me, beauty, actually, the monsters had a lot to do with beauty for me personally, we have the tendency to see what is working, what it makes us flow. And I always say that we only have 180-degree vision instead of having a 360 vision, because the 360 visions are the monsters, are the wounds, are the what is talking to us in a very loud voice, even though we don't want to look at them, even though we don't want to be with them. They're, no matter what, they are streaming through ourselves anyway, So, and with these, I want to go precisely to, because maybe we can talk later about walking on air and about the work you did with the whole George Floyd situation, and not even situation, experience, right? And the look at our wounds directly. But for me, what really caught my attention from you is that installation that you did of the lynching, right? And it grabbed my attention because it grabbed my heart, and it put me in contact with a layer on the consciousness that I am part of the story as well. And so you gave me that gift, and that gift sometimes requires to look at our wounds, look at that 880-degree vision that we don't want to look at that. And for me, that's beauty, Sean. It is like, it really took me into an adventure that doesn't mean that it's going to be flowy and show, it was rapturing me inside, and because I really saw that connection, and I really want to say thank you for the gift. But I want you to talk more about this, because when I work with artists or when I am relating with artists, it is precisely to that point where I go always, you know, the point in which first we need a kind of like a boundless and honesty first. Then we need to go at radical awareness. And that radical awareness, I found it that is precisely when we descend to the shadows, you know, when we descend to the underworld and we completely fall into the ground in order to be in connection with that point that is no time or space, right? It is that point that you are just flowing completely with what ancestral in millions of years they are present right now in this body, in this moment, in this experience. So I want you to talk to me a little bit. That's how I see it. I don't know how you feel it, and I don't know how you allow yourself to be taken over that.
So the installations that you're speaking of, actually, I call them preludes of darkness, and they're like the beginnings of the intro to the show I'm doing. Actually, the preview is next. The 13th is on Saturday. I lost track of the days, and the first show will be September 2nd. And so with these preludes, and I'm doing a show, you know, some mass lynching, and I'm connecting that era with how it connects to now, and how not that far away we are in that's what I'm looking for here. We're not that far away from that moment.
No.
We deal with all the manifestations of that time, right? And so the preludes or the installations were typically, I just go find a space in the Twin Cities, I find a good tree, and I hang it up, play my music, and I start painting with the hopes that I create this discussion or someone to go, why, you know, or what's happening, and then it starts this whole other, you know, opening up of people's awareness on certain things. I chose this show, and you asked me you said something about ancestral. So to that, I did one it's been about 6 weeks now. I did it in a very busy intersection in Minneapolis. And when I got done, I took a picture of this effigy, and I had to send it to you.
Please.
And I looked at this photo, and it looked as if it was looking at me. And I didn't paint the eyes on this effigy. It looked like it was peering down at me. You know, then I looked at it and I had to readjust my view. I looked at it from the front, it looked like it was sleeping. And I was like, wow, this is heavy. You know, and it almost shook me. It creeped me out in a sense. You know, and I'm thinking, I said, wow, maybe the ancestors are really in this moment.
Yeah.
And really checking me out and saying, all right, now since you're here, you're gonna have to keep doing this until you reach the goal, till you do what we need you to do. Because I tell people, I didn't wake up thinking, you know, I'm just gonna do a show and I'm gonna paint a bunch of bodies for the sake of doing it. Because each day I plan this thing hurts, right? It's based on the history. It was not comfortable, but now it's a mission for me. You know, I quit my job on April 15th to focus on this show. You know, I fully just went to the ledge and just jumped, still falling, waiting for. I think I have some small wings that have grown so far to keep me afloat. But it was just this commitment that I had, and that I knew that in this mission that needed to be accomplished, so that people could start having a different conversation around, you know, race, racism, white supremacy, and all of these other things, a new conversation, mind you, and not the ones that we've had since hundreds of years, you know. And I tell people, you know, I typically ask folks, you know, do they think we're in a better space than we were? You know, let's say pre-George Floyd. They go, no. I say, exactly, because we're having the same conversations. Yep. You know, and what they say the sign of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And so I thought, well, I'm going to take the worst, almost like this very horrible, iconic image of American hatred and American history, right? And put it out here and create this beautiful abstract and have people go through this 1.5 hour journey with me to get to a space where everybody is just, full of tears and full of angst and full of pain, and then speaking from that space, because that's the most honest space to me.
Yeah.
I think Rumi said, I think it's on my website, the wound is an opening where light shines in.
Yeah, and it's precisely that. I think where the wound is where abundance is where creativity and
Yeah,
innovation is.
yeah,
And it's that aspect that I was saying that is so important, to look at our wounds,
yeah,
and because they're talking to us. They're
yeah,
talking to us.
definitely. And it's amazing how many people don't want to. And I understand no one wants to deal with pain, right? No one really wants to volunteer and say, let's just look at everything. And I think that's why America is where America is, because no one really wants to truly look at the genesis of things. We want to look at the manifestation, or what I call the leaves of the tree, but no one wants to deal with the roots of the tree.
Yeah.
Because that's where the solution is, and that's where the truth lies. The truth don't lie in the leaves. Derek Chauvin, he's a leaf of the tree. The Buffalo shooter, Peyton Gendron, he was a leaf on the tree. And before him, it was Dylan Roof. He was a leaf on the tree. These individuals are like leaves. They fall off, they die off, and more leaves are born. And then no one asks the question, how did they truly become these people? Because that's not natural. That's abnormal, right? So we don't deal with, we deal with the roots, then we can start dealing with some of these issues that we're having as a country, and start to really truly heal, because now we're really digging at the root of it. America, to me, with the analogy I use, is like the bad doctor's patient, right? Like a person goes into the doctor's office and the liver has gone bad because they've been drinking. But they're so ashamed of how they got to this pain, they don't want to admit it. So they walk into the doctor's office and the doctor goes, so how can I help you? Now we'll assume that there's no doctor records and they can read. So this person walks in and goes, hey, you know what? My right hand is hurting. So they don't want to talk about the liver because they know how they got there. So they treat the hand. The doctor thinks he's done his job, and this person walks off still in pain. They didn't want to deal with the shame of how they got to where their liver is no longer functioning. I'm to the belief and I'll stop, is that America's that liver is still in this bad space. We can look at certain things and say, well, we got, attained certain things, but that's just material trappings, right? That really means nothing when you really pull all that back and go, where are we? And are we really any further along as far as America and how it deals with Black folks and other people of color? Are we really truthfully that further along? And then for my data, obsessed people, I said, well, look at the data. The data will tell you we're not that further. Actually, we're worse in some respects. So,
and also I think data is not even important. It is more like, it's so present. It is so present that we are only still repeating the same pattern of dealing with the symptoms and not dealing with what you were saying. We are in this. The other day, I was talking with an actor, and I was telling, I was kind of like taking him to the underworld, just to look
that's
and
right. That's right.
just look at what it was going on. And at some point he stopped me and he said, well, Yolanda, I don't want to dwell in the pain. And I said, that I'm gonna put it together with what you just said. First requires a volunteer action, a willingness to go, and it is not about dwelling in the pain. It is about to look at the pain, and that alone creates space to be able to keep creating, a space to be able to look at it and find the roots, what you were saying, those roots. You were saying something beautiful in this interview I saw you, in what you said, I want to paint the roots in technicolor, and I want you to talk to me more about that, because I am so invested in the importance of investigating, the importance of digging, the importance of seeing symptoms just as symptoms. If we keep just taking care of the symptoms, in a way, we are repeating the same story with different colors, different leaves, different
Right.
scenes in where to put our trees and our plants and our installations, but we are not addressing the root, and the root requires to, as a collective, actually, because it's in the collective. I mean, the impact that your work had on me is not only because it's ingrained in my more than 2 million years old body, because we are the result, of
Right.
millions of years, right? It is
Right.
imprinted in ourselves. It's not your story or my story, it's our story.
Mhm.
Whatever we want to see it is our story, and we are part of it. We are
Right.
part of the pain, and we're the infliction, and we are part of. We need to look at it, and be responsible. It is not even your responsibility; it's my responsibility. What I do with what you offer me. What I do with that.
Say that last part again.
Sorry.
No, so say that last part again. You had me on another thought. I was ready to answer, I was ready to answer
Well,
something and you
I
hit me with
just
a
want you to
curveball.
talk to me about the darkness in my skin hour.
Oh wow. So that show, it's and I'm not gonna get emotional here. That show is doing this show, planning this show. It's probably been the most outside of just living, just waking up and going to sleep in my 53 years now.
Mhm.
It's been the most difficult thing I've done. Because, as you say, it takes some investigation to further and to really create this show in a way that is most impactful. Because there's a particular portion of the show that's like the climax of the show, like the climax of a movie, and it's a gut punch. But I had to do some research to really fully get the understanding to flesh that part out. And I'll mention that in a minute. But the show in and of itself is, and actually it's an hour and a half long, and it's a gentleman who's out there near you, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He's in California.
Mhm.
He might be LA, I think. Who's doing the musical, the composition for it. Really somber type vibe for an hour and a half. Uh, along this dark backdrop of me painting these bodies to to stir emotions, to stir conversation. And the gut punch of the show is someone asked me when I first started doing this, planning this, they said, "Are you going to have any pregnant effigies?" And I go, I hadn't thought about that. They said, "Well, you know that the slave owners used to cut babies out of the women to scare the people." And I said, "I realized that, but I didn't think about adding that to the show." And so after the second person mentioned it, I said, "Okay, I'm going to add that to the show," because something is telling me in order for me to put people, in more particular allies, right? Because I want to be your ally. I said, and I tell people, I don't want you to be my ally, be my friend. France is America's ally. I want you to be my. I'm not sure they friends. I want you to be my friend in this fight,
Yeah.
right? And in order for you to truly understand, it's basically how I feel. You can understand, cognitively what Black folks go through, right? Say Black Lives Matter. You can understand cognitively what that looks like. You're gonna stand next to me in this fight, but do you know how this feels? And I tell everyone, I said, and I love you to death, but you don't know how this feels every day. So I say all that to say I added this part of the show to put people in my shoes, even if it's only for 8 minutes of the show. right? You get like a condensed version of my daily experience. And so what it is there's, it's this pregnant effigy uh, that I'll be painting. And what's cool about it was, not cool, but you know what I'm saying, is that this new venue that I'm at is a lot smaller than where I started, where I wanted to do it. So I'm able to do part of the show amongst the audience. So this part of the show will be amongst the audience, and it's called the Better Than Here section,
The
and
better
it's
one.
better than here. I'm sorry,
Better than here. No.
better than here, and it's based on this poem I started writing, and it's essentially about an embryo speaking to the audience, and he is plotting his suicide 9 months down the road because he understands through his mother's blood memory, through her energy, he knows that my death may be better than living amongst what America's about to bring me as a Black child. Right? So my death is better than being here. And so it goes on, it's this piece, almost a soliloquy on, this is why I'm doing this. And this is what you need to look at so that we all can have this quote unquote, this American dream type energy when we're walking through this space, these four borders. And so I figure at that point, people will be in my shoes because there's a whole thing, the body be hanging. And then by the time that piece is done, there'll be a smaller baby hanging beneath the other hanging. And so, and my hope is that stirs enough conversation. I think it will. Might make some people angry, which is great. I think
anger is important. I think anger is important. It's a creative force. If it's well channeled, it's a creative force.
Yeah. So that's it in a nutshell. Like I said, an hour and a half, and it's really 30% art and 70% conversation. And what do we do? To get from here to there. I tell people, you can't care from the couch. I need you to get up and do something.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking, but while people are talking and thinking about what they're going to do next, a lot of people are dying. And that part for me told me that you have to say something as an artist. You cannot be indecisive about what your purpose is. Because I figure even if I save one life with this show, if I change one heart and one soul with this show, then my job is done.
Yeah.
Then my job is done. And it'll be streamed. I have to figure out, I'll let you know how that works when I get it figured out.
It's a fantastic project. And it would be great to involve even more people in it, right? For you to expand your voice, because listening to you, for me, it is how creativity is a calling, right? It is beyond you, beyond Sean, beyond Yolanda. It is a calling that it has a power that is pulling us more than staying in the couch. That's for sure.
Yes, it definitely is. It's such an odd thing. I mean, it's different, right? Because my visual artistry, like a lot of artists, I can say, I could draw when I was a kid. I remember drawing when I was 8 to 4, and I set it down for a while. I started writing because I got my heart broke, and I didn't want to put it in my mother's lap. She's a single mother, so I started writing at length. And it just so happens that the paintbrush ended up in my hand again. That's okay. What can I do with this? And then it evolved from just figuring out, how to paint and what that means, and figure, okay, where do I paint from? Do I paint from here or do I paint from here? And so I said, I'm going to paint from here because I think it's the most beautiful part of me anyway. This won't lie to me. Sometimes this messes with me.
This lie, obviously lies.
Right,
because it's a story. It's a story that is lies.
Yeah. So that's why I like painting abstractly, because then the colors and I have this thing for color and color theory and what that means and so on and so forth, and motion, and so it helps with all of that. I lost my train of thought, but
it's okay. The other day I was listening to an artist that he was saying, I don't meditate to paint. I paint to meditate,
Right.
for
Listen, and I agree with that as well. That is, it's a release, but this is the thing. Oh, that's what what is a calling? Yeah, so it called me. That's what I was talking about. But is definitely a way to meditate. When I was on my website, there's a video. I did a show called Heaven or Hell. It was a live paint last year, and it was around this painting I did walking on air in the George Floyd situation.
Mhm.
And I was telling people, I said, that's the first time I'd done anything on that scale. 24 feet, less than an hour in front of however many hundreds of folks. And I remember thinking, okay, Sean, going into this, the first 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to be nervous as heck. You're going to constantly know people are watching, and just listen to me and just go and forget. And it became the shortest 1 hour of my life.
Yeah.
It was different. And then looking at the video, there's a point where I could see, and I had this look in my eye, and someone goes, "You were lost in that one. You were like into the paint in that moment." I said, "You know what I was?" Because I remember that point precisely, because that's when I remember hitting that spot and then hearing this part of the score that told me I had 10 minutes left. And then when I heard, I said, "Wow, I'm almost done." It was bizarre. And so I think I was in that meditative state. This whole therapy for me was, man, this is what I felt when I was standing on these streets the day Brother George Floyd got murdered.
Uh-huh.
And so yes, it's
It
definitely
is.
meditation.
It is because, in a way, when you are in that zone, it is the zone that I talk about at the beginning. There's no space or
Yeah,
time because you are
yeah,
connected to presence, and the time doesn't exist. You
yeah,
enter a new realm in a way. You are not, you completely lose your identity. You completely lose your thoughts. And then
yeah.
you are operating a new operating system. That is not the regular one.
Right, exactly. It's a beautiful space to be in.
Yeah.
And for those of us, those who aren't creative will probably never understand it, but it's something that we enjoy going to,
Yeah.
especially when we have to. It helps me get away from the madness of the world when necessary.
Yeah, because there's no mind. So mind is not operating in that moment. So that's why there's no time. No mind, no time. Because at the end, the thoughts are the past. In a way.
Right,
You're
right.
creating the future. In that moment, you are creating the future. You are creating the future from presence.
Hmm.
And you create something different where mind doesn't intervene, so you cannot repeat what you knew before. You
That's
are in
right.
a different space.
I might remember that what you just said. I have to use that. I'll give you credit. I like that.
And let's go a little bit to the world of NFTs. And how are you doing that transition to this Web3 NFT reality? How do you relate to that?
The NFT, the whole crypto NFT thing, that was fascinating to me. I mean, because I guess crypto was kind of the precursor to NFTs. And so that was like, wow, this is decentralized thing.
Hmm.
And then the NFT, a buddy of mine in Detroit, he's the one that, familiarized me with it. He's a lawyer. He said, man, check this out. And I'm reading through it. I'm like, wow. Then I read something about the gentleman who goes by the name of Beeple, who sold an NFT for like $69 million. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. So I
Yeah.
did more digging. I was like, this is interesting. I mean, I'm not old enough to not have a malleable mind, so I'm wrapping my brain around this thing and how it can work for me as a traditional artist, so to say. And so once I started thinking about this, one, the how to's, but also the economics of it,
Uh-huh.
that's what intrigued me. Is that we as artists can get, like a royalty for our work that we can't get in the traditional world. And in the way I try to explain, because some folks have a hard time wrapping their brain around, why do you buy NFTs? I was like, well, it's like a collectible. And this is why it's beneficial for artists. An artist sells a painting for, let's say, $5,000. That's it. That's all they get. The person they get it turn around sell it for 5 million. We're just looking like, wow, that's great. I wish I could get that. But with the NFTs, the smart contracts and things of that nature, we get a residual, you know, royalty for our work in perpetuity. And I say, okay, that's great. You know, and then just the different ways that NFTs can be the different ways you can build value in NFTs is what also astounded me, right? Embed video and sound and all these different wonderful things that you can't do with a traditional painting because it gives your painting for me a painting a whole new story.
Yeah.
People can see or can hear the whys and the whats and this is what he was thinking. So even on Femi I have a part of these NFTs of the work I did during the George Floyd, the Heaven and Hell show, I should say, excuse me. And with that comes a video clip of me, and short video clip of me, creating, and it gives it context, as opposed this is just a colorful image of a painting. Okay, here's a part of the show that comes with that, and that intrigued me, with walking on air, it's more or less, similar thing that I could build different types of premiums, I guess. I'm not sure what the term is right now. Into downloadable content. There we go. DLC.
I think they call it utilities, right?
There we go. There we go. Into the work, but it's amazing to me because technology, as scary as it can be, and it's a beautiful thing, and this whole NFT world, is astounding. I mean, if I could code, I'd be something to reckon with.
Yeah.
Because I know there's some NFTs that I've seen, and there's another thing that fascinated me is that these things you purchase it actually ages based on the code. I mean, it's a crazy world, but it's so beautiful and fabulous and I understand collectibles when I was a kid, I was collecting sports cards. I get the concept,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rarity of certain things.
And you see, even beyond that, I think it's completely in alignment to the artist that you are because NFT has that capacity, the capacity to tell a story, the capacity of offer value that really can change your life, the capacity to collaborate with other artists, like you can collaborate with an NFT musician and, like creating community around a decentralized. So in a way, it is okay. I am in these 150 or 2,000 people, that they're my community, and I offer value and I connect directly with them directly. You know who is the one who gets your NFT. The one that it has a question, it can ask you directly. That is so important and kind of like moving away from an idea of the world that we have that is not working. Obviously.
Yeah. So and those are two important words you just mentioned: capacity and community.
Yeah.
And that sums up what I was trying to say best. It's all about NFTs offer that capacity, and also that capacity to build. And it's and depending on how we price things, people can get in on art.
Yeah.
Low. You don't have to have millions of dollars and have to sit in a room at Sotheby's or whatever, some other auction house, and get a piece of art that you desire.
And it also brings the distinction that you were making before, between allies and friends. This can be a way of real making friends. People brothers and sisters that go with you in whatever venture you decided to go.
That's right. That's right. It's it's a fabulous. I'm almost speechless, but it's a beautiful thing. This NFT's world of NFT and crypto in and of itself is like wow. But yeah. Anyway.
Sean,
Haven't had my
what?
third cup of coffee yet. So.
Let me know something that we haven't touched in this conversation. It was a good conversation for you. It was something that
Oh,
you got
definitely,
value out of
definitely.
it.
I think something that we haven't covered. Well, I haven't talked about. Well, the show is
Yes,
when I get the details on the tickets and the stream and all that, then I'll let you know.
please.
But I think that as you know, and this is kind of piggybacking this conversation earlier, as it pertains to us having these tough conversations with people.
Mhm.
I think part of our issue has been those of us who want to have the conversation haven't had the intestinal fortitude or the will to fight to have that conversation more than those who don't want to have the conversation. You know,
Mhm.
we don't have enough willpower. They have willpower. We allow people to get out the room, so to say, when the conversation starts. I think if we want to really get this country, our society in a better space, then we have to almost demand that people stay in the room
Yeah.
and allow them to understand that once you go through this portion of your that experience that hurts you most, that on the other side of that is a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
Because part of what has happened, I think, especially with respects to, excuse me, with race and so on and so forth, and as pertains to darkness in my skin, is what I tell people is that a lot of folks think that African Americans were the only folks traumatized by these moments.
No.
And what I tell people, and truly, we wear some of that in our blood, right? In our blood and memory. What I've told a lot of people is that, especially my white friends, I don't have too many allies. I have a lot of friends. Is that there was something that was lost within their blood and memory as well over time, right? Either you had a direct forefather or foremother, or you're a direct descendant of someone who stood at a lynching, or you were a direct descendant of someone who stood by and knew someone was doing the lynching and didn't say anything.
Mhm.
And in order to do either one of those things, you have to divest yourself of a particular part of your humanity. Because to lynch someone is not a human thing. Now, one of the most difficult part in doing these preludes or installations was when I had to sit and watch, YouTube University and learn how to tie a noose. That moment, that was the hardest thing, because it's not that hard to do and create. And so your mind, at least my mind, takes me down the road of this was so easy for people to do, and they thought this was normal and that this is okay, right? But those who watched it, you had to truncate your humanity and cut a part of you out in order to accept that.
Yeah.
And that was passed along in your blood, because I believe in blood memory and genetic memory. So there's a part in this transition of people's lives and their history that was lost, right? That we have to figure out, how do we get people to regain that history, to really rehumanize
Yeah.
themselves,
And
you know,
those
and
gaps, like they're like the gaps in the cheese, like
yeah,
we have all those gaps in memory, in feelings, and everything, that we need to bring it
yeah,
together. And that is painful. It's not an easy.
definitely. And that's why we had to go. These people who want to escape, no, you can't. We need to have this conversation, because you have to regain this part of. You have to be brave enough to know that when you're done hurting, you're gonna be okay. And we can't let people, whatever world or vocation that we're in, so keep allowing people to escape the conversation because they have to get upset and they get too loud, and we don't want to deal with the energy or whatever the case may be. We had to stop allowing that, because that's the reason why we're still in having these conversations today. So we have to be brave and have the intestinal fortitude to stand in the face of fire, so to say, and know that when we're done, we're none of us going to get burned by this. Our feelings may be hurt a little bit. You're going to be broken down, but to use the analogy. Mhm.
And I'm listening, and what is very important, Sean, after the experience having that, it needs to be space for integration, because if you don't integrate all those emotions that you went through, it actually splits you even further away of
Mhm.
who you are, right?
Yeah.
And integration. I'm offering you here whatever help you need, for sure. And if you need some point, more conversations about these, please let me know, and we have
Oh
them.
no, indeed, indeed. No, I appreciate that. And to your point, real quick, I'm gonna keep this very short. Is that after each show there is a conversation. So a lot of people to decompress and talk about what they're feeling, and then the plan is to have further conversations within the community on what do
Yeah,
we do and how did you feel behind this?
yeah.
Because to leave people just with that without nothing after that is
No,
unfair. That's inhuman, and that's not me. So it's let's sit down, let's have further conversation, let's go through this together.
yeah,
We can walk together and don't have to double back to go over some steps that we already had taken. So,
yeah.
but I appreciate your time.
I appreciate yours. You have been my gift for today, and also
Likewise,
my gift that how important is to say yes to life, right? Yes to whatever comes, and let's deal whatever the magic that happens when you say yes.
definitely, definitely.
Thank you, Sean. I
Thank
will post
you.
this. This is happening live, but I will post it again, and for you
Please.
to post it on your stuff if you want to, and
Oh,
anything that you
definitely.
need, anything that you need from me. I'm open. I always said, I open my heart for your heart to plug in mine, and let's get some emotional resonance. That's so
That's
important.
right. Well, I appreciate it. Trust me, I'll be reaching out to you.
Please, please, I will be honored. I will be honored. Have an excellent day, and thank you again for being
Thank
here
you.
with me today. I really, really appreciate your gift.
Likewise. You have a good day as well. Enjoy.
Bye,
Take
Sean.
care. Now.
Take